Hello, this is Professor Doyle Young talking to you in this lecture about Chapter 12 in our book, which is in the whole area of contingency theories. That is to really talk about the behavior of the leader in actually situations and what are those different situations according to the theories and the research that leaders find themselves involved with. Up to this point, you know, we've talked at a very detailed level in some cases, but at a high level about the fact that leadership is contingent upon the interplay of all three aspects of the leader-follower situation model. And so this chapter gets in again to more detail regarding about the contingency situations. Since leadership is contingent upon the interplay, what are the theories that are operating in how we view these situations? The theories are really ways of explaining how the situations, various factors that are dynamically at play as leaders operate in organizations. Now, there are four contingency theories talked about in this chapter, and there are some similarities between all of these. First of all, keep in mind that these are theories rather than personal opinions. The theories also are similar in that they implicitly assume that leaders are able to accurately diagnose or assess key aspects of followers in the leadership situation. Next similarity they all have in common, with the exception of the contingency model, the leaders are assumed to be able to act in a flexible manner. That is, given the situation, that their experience would dictate that they take one activity over another or one response over another. Lastly, similarity with all four of the theories is a correct match between situational and follower characteristics and leaders' behavior is assumed to have a positive effect on group and organizational outcomes. The first theory in the book talks about the normative decision model. And this model talks to the fact that there's a level of input subordinates have in decision making, and that input does vary substantially depending on the issue. Vroom and Yetton maintain that leaders could often improve group performance by using an optimal amount of participation in the decision-making process. That model, the normative decision-making model, is directed solely at determining how much input subordinates should have in the decision-making process. The model was designed to improve some aspects of leadership effectiveness, in that the authors explored how various leader, follower, and situational factors affect the degree of subordinates' participation in the decision-making process and in turn group performance. If there's a continuum of decision-making process ranging from completely autocratic, completely democratic, that was talked about with leaders. So there is a continuum of how much the leader wishes to involve people in that in a collaborative sense, and how much they would like the followers' input there. What I don't think is stated, I'm not seeing stated in the model, is sort of a view that higher levels of collaboration by the followers with the leader in the situation produces higher levels of ownership in the outcome. I'll say that again. What's implied, I think, in the model, in this normative decision-making model, is the higher level of involvement or collaboration by the followers with the leader, and the leader getting their input, then the higher level of ownership by the followers in the outcome. That is, they are vested because they've got time and energy and what we have referred to as thought leadership input into the outcome here. So keep in mind that there are the situational parts of leadership, which we're going to talk a little bit more later. Says that in certain situations may dispose the leader, he or she may not have the time or the resources to engage the workers or the followers in the situation. So keep in mind that this continuum is sort of, again, driven by the situation. The Vroom and Yetton model believed that the decision quality and decision acceptance were the most important criteria for judging the adequacy of the decision. So stated another way is what is the quality of the decision by the leader that needs to be made, and what level of acceptance did the leader want people to have in that. And so that became the basis for the adequacy of the decision about how to bring them into this. Decision quality is already defined there. Decision acceptance is defined there. And on figure 12.1, it gives a lot more detail to what that figure is. It's really a decision tree. And as you look at this decision tree has become extremely popular over the last 20 years in continuous improvement or process reengineering, where a problem is stated and all the various decisions that need to be attended to in terms of solving that problem or addressing that problem are laid out. You know, and the questions on figure 12.1 give some idea of the thinking behind or questions to be asked about the solving of the problem. Is it quality related? Is there sufficient of information? Is the problem really that structured? Is there acceptance by subordinates important for effective implementation? Is it reasonable that if I made the decision as a leader, would that imply that there would be no acceptance by the subordinates or the followers? On and on and on. And so you'll see it says A, B, C, D as it goes through that decision tree. Those are the various decisions that are being made along the way that involve the subordinates. So this is a very good model for breaking problems down, if you will, and decisions that go with them, and the degree of concurrence, collaboration with employees over the quality, again, the quality of the decisions that is being made, and and the degree of acceptance that's being made by the workers. Just some other thoughts about this is there are no questions about the leader's personality, motivations, values, or attitudes in the model. So it really, this particular leader-follower situation framework organizes concepts in a familiar conceptual structure. The model also views decision-making as taking place at a single point in time, when that may actually not be the case. There may be multiple decision points, and they may take various amounts of time. The model also assumes that leaders are equally skilled at decision-making processes, and that some of the prescriptions of the model may assumed that the various prescriptions of the model may not be best for a given situation. So anyway, you have 12.2, figure 12.2 sort of lays that out a little bit better in the normative decision model, interactional framework. And the book next gets into the situational leadership model. And again, it sort of brings back up some earlier definitions in other parts of the text, for example, talking about task behaviors. And that is to the extent to which the leader spells out the responsibilities. And then relationship behaviors is how much time the leader engages in two-way communication. You know, that could include clarifying questions, listening, probing, summarizing, encouraging, facilitating, giving support, engaging the workers but as followers at much different levels. So in this case, the situational leadership model talks about two key factors here: task behaviors and relationship behaviors. On figure 12.3, you'll see essentially what Paul Hershey and Kenneth Blanchard, who developed this model, laid out the model, which is essentially at the one of the axes is task behaviors, that is low task versus high task behaviors. High task would be, again, where the leader on the very right side of it is telling people what needs to be done or how it should be done. On the very left is low task, is it assumes that people do not need to be told, and so it's delegating that out, presumably along with the authority and the responsibility to get it done. In situations, for example, they may start with a new relationship with a worker, which there is high confidence in their ability to get the job done. Then there is a low task behavior at the very left of the bell-shaped curve, which it says delegating. So there's no need to be telling the person, but also there's low relationship. That means that that those supporting behaviors to the individuals are not really necessary, because there's may very well be high confidence in the leader that person is going to be able to do that job. Okay. Now, as the tasks get more complex and the leader needs to be engaged, then you'll see in that curve that as the task gets more involved, then the leader will become more supportive. So the supportive behaviors increase as the task gets actually more complex, and where there is actually participation by the leader in terms of their behavior. And it talks about selling. It may be that the leader gets to a point where they realize a person, again, may not, they de-emphasize the supportive behaviors, and then the model becomes more and more strictly task focused. So that's a lot more directive, less supportive, and where the leader is not engaged in terms of supporting behaviors. So this model has been very widely used in the West. I personally know Ken Blanchard and have spoken with him, and I remember early in his career in the late 1960s, have our company, our firm that I used to work with, an international consulting firm, used to work with him. And so I live here in Southern California in San Diego County, and he actually works in this area and is very active. So this is a very effective model. The situational leadership model, follower readiness, is defined as a follower's ability and willingness to accomplish a particular task. So it's presumed that there is here follower readiness. Keep in mind that follower readiness in terms of this model is not a personal characteristic, but rather how ready an individual is to perform a particular task. So readiness is not an assessment of an individual's personality traits, values, age, etc. It is really the ability, readiness of an individual to perform a task. When we say readiness, it's really, do they have presumably the knowledge, skills, and abilities or the competencies to do that job, okay? Now, it might be that an individual does not, and so there needs to be a focus of the leader to ensure that that person, when performing the task, if they're given freedom to do the task, that they're able to do it. So any given follower could be low on readiness to perform one task, but high on readiness to perform a different task. So the model then again is situation. And we cannot infer that because we treated and the relationship between a leader and a follower looked this way, according to the model, that we could superimpose that in another situation. The situations, again, are likely, could be different. Perceptions of this model is while combining follower readiness levels with the 4 combinations of leader behaviors, 4 segments along a continuum emerge. And along this continuum, however, the assessment of the follower readiness can be fairly subjective. So this is where the view or belief of the leader in regards to the follower's readiness is really incumbent upon that ability of the leader to be effective in terms of judging the readiness of that leader to take on responsibilities. A leader may like to see followers increase their level of readiness for a particular task through implementation of a series of development interventions to help boost the follower readiness levels. So this level, or this model, implies that the leader needs to be very much engaged to ensure that the readiness of the followers is there. Beyond that, the situational leadership model and interactional framework also is depicted on page 12.4, where you have the leader, the followers, and the situation, and that gives us a little more insights around that. The contingency model, I might talk to that. Although leaders may be able to change their behaviors towards individual subordinates, leaders also have dominant behavioral tendencies. The studies with leaders as we move higher up in the organization is the dominant characteristics of leaders grow larger. That is, their propensity to be more task-oriented, to focus on the task, and so willing to tell people what to do, willing to direct people what to do, and so forth. So the contingency model suggests that leaders' effectiveness is primarily determined by selecting the right kind of leader for a certain situation, or change the situation to fit the particular leadership style. To understand the contingency theory, one must look at the critical characteristics of the leader and then the critical aspects of the situation. And that's where the contingency model really comes alive. Figure 12.5 in the book talks about the least preferred coworker scale motivational hierarchies from low to high leaders. And again, we're back to almost a motivational theory of leadership. And it talks about, again, task and people, where a low leader motivational hierarchy exists, LPC exists, leader preferred coworker scale, where a low leader motivational hierarchy exists. Then you have focus on task at the top level people, where there's a high least preferred coworker scale, then those are actually reversed. Situational favorability is the amount of control the leader has over the followers, and the more control a leader has over followers, the more favorable the situation is, or at least from a leader's perspective. This chapter and this particular situational favorability also goes into leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. Figure 12.6 talks about the contingency model Octant structure for determining situational favorability. And you have a situation that goes all the way from high overall situation favorability to low. And then it talks about the leader-member relations between all of those. Are the task structured? Is the task structure itself structured or unstructured? Is it as it relates to good, or is it structured, unstructured as it relates to poor? And then again, it talks about the position power as it goes along there, and the octant it finds itself into. The prescriptions of the model are displayed on 12.7, and that as situations become from high to low, the favorability of those situations become low, then the LPC relationship is stated with the leader there being low. And as high LPCs, that is the task leader, is mentioned there, then the octants or the favorability is low. So I would encourage you to get acquainted with this model, and I think you'll find it really another way to look at how the relationship is between the leader and the follower as a different model. Figure 12.8 is factors from Fiedler's contingency theory and interactional framework. So that talks about, again, followers, the situation, and the leader. The leader is a motivation hierarchy as determined by LPC. It talks about that. It talks about the followers in terms of leader-member relations, and there's sort of some overlap there. And then the situation or the, where there's task structure and position power. The outcomes in terms of the figure 12.8 is the effective or ineffective group performance based upon match or mismatch between the leader and overall favorability of the leadership situation. So figure 12.8 really speaks to the importance of selecting the appropriate leader given the situation that they find themselves into. The book also goes into path goal theory, and the path goal theory talks to the underlying mechanism of the path goal theory model itself, which deals with expectancy, or a cognitive approach to understanding motivation, where people calculate effort to performance probabilities or performance to outcome probabilities, or of assigned valences or values to the outcome. This theory uses the same basic assumptions as the expectancy theory talked about earlier. So the path goal theory, again, talks about the leaders, the followers, and the situations. Now, the leaders may use various styles with different subordinates and different styles with the same subordinates in different situations. So this path goal theory really is talking to the effectiveness of the leader in different situations. The followers themselves what talks to the satisfaction, so there's a measure of the satisfaction of followers, and then the followers' perception of their own abilities there. And then there's talking to the actual task in the situation and the authority system that's set up and the work groups there. Figure 12.1 talks about the four kinds of different kinds of leadership. There's directive, supportive, participative, and achievement-oriented leadership. And as the practical side of a course like this, for students that are actually working in organizational situations, you may want to be thinking in terms of a leader that you report to or have experience with, maybe a previous leader, and to understand as you read this model where they fit in terms of being directive or supportive or participative or more achievement oriented. And you may even think, well, their primary style, if you will, or behavior may be supportive, but yet their backup may be directive. So you could have two or more operating depending on the situation. 12.9 talks about the interaction between followers, locus of control, scores, and leaders' behavior and decision making. And again, it's another way of looking at whether leaders are directive or participative, and whether there's low or high follower satisfaction with the leader. Figure 12.10 talks about examples of applying the path goal theory. In this case, it will be a newly formed work unit or substandard performance where there's nothing there in terms of that situation. In a newly formed work unit, the directive of the behaviors of the leader, that is, they tell followers what to do and how to do it. And the followers are reduced role ambiguity. So the more the behavior of the leader is directed towards telling them what to do, the implication is there will be a reduced ambiguity, that is a clear effort to performance links. And then the outcome would be a higher effort, higher satisfaction. Now, where there is situations where it's not, it has been formed, and there is clarity around this, then you could say that the leader's behavior is not telling followers what to do. And that situation could still produce a reduced ambiguity regarding the role because it is a structured situation. So figure 1211 goes into some factors from the path goal theory and the interactional framework. I encourage you to read through those. So in summary, we've talked about 4 contingency theories of leadership: normative, situational, contingency model, and path goal theory. Keep in mind that they specify that behaviors should make their behaviors contingent on certain aspects of the followers or the situation. And know that as theories, they implicitly assume that leaders are accurately assess their follower and situational factors. And as theories, they are limited. So the key here is to understand the theories, internalize them, and realize that the language and how they look at things as you internalize them can help the student rationalize their use and apply them to different situations as the theories make sense. So I hope you found section 12 in this supplemental lecture helpful. Thank you.